In 2003, the supersonic Concord airliner was discontinued and phased out of commercial use, mainly because it was a more expensive alternative to a product the public was already satisfied with. In 2012, the Costa Concordia cruise ship crashed into the island of Giglio as a result of poor decision-making on the part of the ship's captain. In the 1975 film Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Lancelot Squire is hit and injured by a random arrow in a moment of truly horrible luck. His name was
Brave, brave Concord!
In 2009, the HBO television series Flight of the Conchords was cancelled after just 2 seasons because the creators were overwhelmed by the pressure being put on them and no longer enjoyed making the show. You know what all these things have in common? None of them failed in as many ways as Concord the video game. Concord was a more expensive alternative to a superior free product that was plagued by poor decision-making by leadership, bad luck, and massive pressure from Sony, who spent nearly $500 million on the game just to refund the estimated $1 million they got back in return. Exactly 1 year ago today, Concord was taken offline permanently.
Hey guys, Command B coming at you from the editing room. As some of you might know, Concord went offline on September 6th, and today is not that day. Apologies for that, I got kind of sidetracked playing this super highly anticipated indie game that came out recently. I'm of course talking about Harold Halibut, but hey, I hope the wait was worth it. Really tried to make the editing better than ever in this one. So yeah, please enjoy.
Officially cementing the game as arguably the biggest flop in the history of media, games or otherwise. So come with me as we do a little digital grave digging, revisiting the story of Concord in the hopes that we may learn something from its short, troubled existence. Our story begins with Harold Ryan. You may not know that name, but you certainly know the things he's worked on. See, he was the CEO and chairman of Bungie back in the good old days. He presided over the release of a little-known title called Halo, and continued on that hot streak through the release of Destiny, which won Game of the Year. But in 2016, Harold started to see industry trends materialize that he didn't quite like. He saw increased corporatization and poor working conditions eating away at the game industry culture he had grown to love. The one where the real exotic weapon engrams were the friends we made along the way. So this sparked an idea. He decided to leave Bungie and strike out on his own, with the aim of creating a new type of game company. A game company that combined new school resources and funding with old school, people-first culture. Sounds pretty darn good. In 2018, Ryan announces the formation of Probably Monsters, which would serve as an incubator for sub-studios, like a dutiful emperor penguin sitting on the eggs that would hatch into gaming's next great IPs. Most excitingly, 2 of those eggs had already been laid in the form of Cauldron and Firewalk Studios. The idea was each studio would have a specific title or genre they specialize in, ensuring only the best and brightest experts would be working on each team. It was an unsinkable ship, a decent plan. One of those studios, Firewalk, would specialize in shooters, and they were reportedly making one of the 5v5 sci-fi variety. Good stuff. The outfit was headed by Ryan Ellis, former Bungie creative director, and Tony Sue, former senior vice president of Destiny at Activision.
I love you.
You got the wrong fucking number.
I don't know how you can be senior vice president of a single game, but hey, it sounds impressive. So impressive, in fact, that Sony entered an exclusive publishing deal with Firewalk in 2021. Probably Monsters then received $250 million in Series A funding in 2022. But wait, there's more! In 2023, Sony doubled down and bought Firewalk outright, fully committing to chasing the live service dragon. CEO Jim Ryan said he was, quote, confident the studio's upcoming project will be a robust addition to PlayStation Studios' portfolio. Clearly, whatever was being shown off behind the scenes was looking real good. Or was it? Well, according to an inside source within the dev team who spoke to Colin Moriarty, the self-proclaimed godfather of PlayStation podcasts, that's not exactly true. Apparently, when the game was shown to Sony leadership, it was in rough shape. Key features like the new player experience and monetization plan were not even started, and that was 5 years and $200 million into development. Should have probably been a red flag, right? Well, according to Moriarty, senior leadership at Sony, specifically co-CEO Herman Hulst, loved the concept of Concord so much that he decided they would throw whatever resources necessary at it to get it across the finish line, to the tune of an additional $200 million. It seemed to him that the team was simply too talented to fail, and with more firepower, Concord was going to be the live service smash hit Sony was looking for. Internally, it was referred to as the future of PlayStation, with Star Wars-like potential. The idea was to make Concord not just a hit game, but a hit IP across multiple forms of media, beginning with an episode in Amazon's video game-oriented anthology series Secret Level, set to release in December 2024. But Sony was playing 4D chess here and knew that for Concord's millions of fans, it wouldn't be enough. So the team started cooking up very stylish, very expensive cinematics that would drop weekly alongside the game. So despite the game's extremely underbaked state, the red carpet treatment the team was getting from Sony ensured the vibes were good. Maybe a little too good. Colin's inside source also cited a culture of toxic positivity, where criticism of the game's design choices was implicitly discouraged in an effort to lift morale, which obviously achieved the opposite when people felt their voices weren't being heard. Of course, take these things with a grain of salt, it's all based on the testimony of one developer. But given how things turned out for Concord, it's very hard to imagine the team was unanimously in support of the game's direction. Another example of good vibes gone wrong is the curious case of the Professor, also known as Lisa Brown. Lisa was Concord's principal game designer, who identified as a professor despite not having any actual credentials in education. Lisa insisted on being called the Professor at all times, and anyone who refused would be reported to HR and written up.
You wouldn't want to have to talk to human resources, would you?
Meetings were supposedly even reworked to accommodate, turning design syncs with Lisa into design masterclasses with the Professor. This was naturally seen as ridiculous by other members of the team, but they chose to keep their mouths shut rather than go through the hassle of speaking up. So the show went on, and in May 2023, it was time to reveal the game to the public for the very first time. What would they show? A short lore piece to add investment in the characters? A shootout with space pirates, perhaps? That's right, for an epic 5v5 sci-fi hero shooter, we got an empty ship and a deliciously jiggly burger. The bold choice to show more cooking utensils than weapons left viewers in a state of apathetic confusion, failing to arouse any excitement at all. Well, maybe someone was aroused by the burger, but overall as a reveal trailer it went rather poorly, sitting at 350,000 views at the time of recording. Not exactly future of PlayStation or Star Wars-like numbers. But no need to worry, the game still had over a year before release, and things would surely come together. Plus, the public had yet to see Concord's crown jewel, the characters. Of course, characters and character designs are the central component of any hero shooter. Just look at Overwatch, which was the gold standard for the genre throughout Concord's entire development cycle. One memorable design after another connected players to the IP instantly, and now Overwatch fan art is almost bigger than the game itself. Concord knew this, so the next time they faced the public, the characters were going to be front and center. Fast forward a year and the gang at Firewalk was ready for their close-up, with Concord slated to be the big announcement at Sony's 2024 State of Play. This trailer wasn't just the debut for the characters, it was also a taste of what players could expect going forward with the weekly cinematics. To its credit, the cinematic looked very, very impressive, clearly the product of industry-leading CG artists, but even then, the trailer released to uproarious apathy. For starters, the quippy Marvel-style dialogue would have gone great if the game had released in 2016 when it began development, but by 2024 it had gone fully out of style. But what about the characters? Surely people liked the characters. Star-Lord and the gang from Timu, janitors of the galaxy. Finally, characters that are immune to Rule 34. Captain Hot Sauce and Guardians of the Fallacy. This ain't Guardians of the Galaxy, that's Protectors of the Cosmos. To make matters worse, keen viewers picked up on a prompt to pre-order on the end card, meaning the game would not be free to play. Sony confirmed this in a subsequent blog post, setting the price tag at $40. Not so good, considering all of the leading genre competitors were free. I have no evidence to support this, but to me this felt like Sony reading the writing on the wall and choosing to pivot to a paid product late in development, essentially betting that the average player wouldn't stick around long enough to spend $40 on in-game goodies. The price point itself also reflects this lack of confidence, since surely people would shell out the $70 on the future of PlayStation. But hold on a second, there was still one more trick up Firewalk's sleeve. Sure, things weren't trending in the right direction, but remember, nobody's actually played the game or seen its gameplay yet. And after all, this is a video game we're talking about. Not a movie or a TV show, a goddamn game where the player's experience is king. So what if the character designs aren't hitting? Fine, we'll rework those. The writing style is annoying and stale? No problem, just boot up Microsoft Word and write something different. But the gameplay, that's the core of this thing, and that's the part we won't change for anyone. Let's put Concord in the player's hands and let the gameplay do the talking. So that's what they did. Firewalk announced a closed beta weekend for players who pre-ordered, followed by an open beta the next weekend where anyone could hop in to try Concord for free. For reference, the Overwatch beta saw 10 million total players. The Valorant beta averaged 3 million daily players. At this point, Sony and Firewalk were probably tempering their expectations and would have been okay with a couple million registrations and a few 100,000 daily players. Not record-breaking figures, but enough to ensure the game would have a stable player base for years to come.
What? It's just an ordinary crabby... Oh my goodness!
That is abysmally low. No, good vibes only. We still have the open beta. The closed one was just for people who pre-ordered. Who pre-orders games anyway? Come on, anyone can hop in now.
Let's up those numbers!
The open beta reached a still dismal 2,400 players on Steam, and from here, both Sony and Firewalk go notably silent. And can you blame them? They're in an unsalvageable position. They're already $400 million in the hole, and the longer they work on the game, the bigger that number will get, meaning the game would need to be an even bigger success to break even, or dare I say it, turn a profit. Worse, for the game to be a success, they would basically need to start over, because nothing they were doing seemed to be working. The other option, of course, was to just sit tight, hope for the best, and stick with the original release date, which at this point was just over a month away. They chose option B. 1 month later, on August 23rd, 2024, Concord launched. Despite middling reviews from critics, player numbers were low, even by the pitiful standards set by the game's own betas. I'm talking James Cameron at the bottom of the ocean low. The game's all-time peak player count sits, and will forever sit, at 697 players on Steam. Less than a third of the turnout for the open beta. Games that are considered monumental flops like this year's Mind's Eye or 2023's The Day Before blow Concord out of the water by this metric. All told, the game reportedly sold 25,000 copies across all platforms, making a grand total of $1 million in sales. Just 11 days later, Sony announced Concord was being permanently taken offline and that full refunds would be issued to all purchasers, reducing that $1 million to zero. 3 days after that, Concord was no longer playable, swiftly removed from existence by the very company that had so zealously believed in it. This is more or less the end of Concord's story, but there were some notable things that happened in the aftermath that are worth mentioning. One dev had a public meltdown on Twitter and called critics of the game talentless freaks. Herman Hulst stepped down as co-CEO of Sony Interactive Publishing and has been demoted to the lowly role of head of PlayStation Studios. Game director Ryan Ellis put out a statement saying he was exploring options to better reach the players, which some interpreted as Firewalk taking Concord's assets and using them to create a completely different game, like a single-player RPG or something. But then that discussion was brought to a close when Firewalk was permanently shuttered 6 weeks later. For those wondering, the professor now works at EA. So what do we make of all this? What do we take away? Because the weird thing is, Concord is a competently made video game, much more so than the other titles it was beaten by in terms of player count. It doesn't have any game-breaking bugs or exploits or performance issues, the set pieces look good enough, and there's plenty of content between the 16 characters and 12 maps. So what is it then? I'm sure this question has kept Sony executives up through many sleepless nights, but luckily I'm here to tuck them in and make it all make sense. To me, this all boils down to the hero shooter genre. Let's really stop and key in on that first word, hero. More than any other genre in gaming, hero shooters live and die by the quality of their character designs. Overwatch understood that and managed to create a cast of visually distinct, memorable characters that resonated with players on day one, which is honestly incredibly impressive. Marvel Rivals smartly leveraged the IP's pre-existing cast, guaranteeing strong attachment to the game's roster. Concord, on the other hand, had no such luck. They didn't just drop the ball, they loaded the ball into a cannon and shot it off Mount Everest. Turns out, those characters everyone was roasting in the CG trailer were actually the best designs Concord had to offer. To create successful characters for this kind of game, there are two things you need to nail. First off, the characters need to look cool, plain and simple. It's hard to quantify, but you know it when you see it. Genji looks cool, De Beers does not. Winter Soldier looks cool, Roka does not. You know when you're a kid and you really want to wear a Halloween costume, but it's clearly designed for kids a couple years older than you, so the mask or helmet is gigantic? That's what Roka here makes me think of. In fact, maybe someone in the comments can back me up here, but that's what all of Concord's characters make me think of. People in costumes, almost as if this is the crappy cosplay version of a serviceable design we don't get to see. Now you might be wondering, why do the characters need to look cool? We're just shooting each other, Command B, this isn't the Met Gala. It's because people connect with aspirational figures in media. We gravitate towards characters who represent exaggerations of our best qualities. Qualities like strength and bravery and courage. I know I'll never be able to look like Captain America or do the things he can, so it's exciting to embody him in a game for a couple hours. It's fun to play as Spider-Man so I can experience swinging from the rooftops, or Kratos so I can experience fatherhood.
What?
This is what aspirational characters do for us. They put us in the shoes of people we'd want to be. Does this have the negative side effect of hypersexualizing almost every hero shooter character? Yeah, maybe, but I think all but 697 of us can agree we'd rather play as someone who is unattainably muscular or impossibly curvy than whatever's going on here. The second piece is the intuitive nature of their design as it relates to gameplay. Good designs use their visual presentation to inform the player of their abilities. Look at Pharah from Overwatch. She's got a wing-like jetpack on and her mask has a bird-like quality. Not too far a stretch to assume she flies. Now look at Jabali from Concord. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, that's Cam Newton. Now look at Jabali from Concord. What does he do? Unless hanging out at coffee shops in Brooklyn is his signature ability, there's nothing about his design to clue us into his gameplay. Turns out he's a healer, by the way, in case that's what you were thinking. So that's a 0 out of 10 on the hero in Hero Shooter, but what about the shooter part? To save Concord, the gunplay and abilities needed to be really, really good. So good that every other hero shooter would pale in comparison. As you might have guessed, that wasn't the case. The gameplay was painfully generic, like if you went to the hero shooter factory and took one off the assembly line before it got dusted with any flavor. Even now when I watch clips of the game, it looks so slow, to the point where it triggers that impulse in my brain that makes me think I'm looking at slowed down footage. Overall, Concord was a perfect storm of bad decision making and worse execution, leading to a product so bland that it inspired not hate, but apathy, which is arguably worse. For most of us, the entire thing went by in the blink of an eye, not becoming noteworthy until it was already over. For developers, I think Concord's fate is a cautionary tale, one that will hopefully discourage big spending on future titles that don't bring any meaningful innovation to the genres they're trying to join. While Probably Monsters was able to wash their hands of the whole thing by selling off Firewalk to Sony in the business move of the century, I think their fixation on people-first culture had a role to play in the whole thing. I think focusing on accountability and treating others with respect sounds great on paper, but it can turn sour quickly when immature people use that as a shield from criticism, confusing constructive feedback with personal attacks. And so ends the story of Concord. Leave a like and sub if you think I earned it. Let me know what you think in the wait, why does it feel like I'm forgetting something? Oh god, the secret level episode. Okay, hold on. Give me 30 minutes, not 30 seconds. God damn it. All right, I'll be back.
A few moments later.
Okay, I've now seen Concord's secret level episode, and honestly, I don't have that much to say about it. The only thing of note about the episode is that we don't see a single one of the characters we've grown to love, and are instead introduced to an all-new cast, who some have theorized were the batch of characters that were going to be added to the game before it was shut down. Normally, I would say there's no way characters with such bland, unappealing designs would ever make it into a hero shooter, but this is Concord we're talking about, and honestly, they fit right in with the rest, or at least I think they do. To be honest, the whole thing is already starting to fade from my memory. That's really the remarkable thing about Concord. It has this uncanny ability to immediately wipe itself from your mind the second you're no longer looking at it. And ultimately, I think that's really what doomed this game from the start. It isn't good enough to be memorable, but it also isn't bad enough to be memorable either. It just goes by, barely making an impression of any kind. I think that's why it felt like there was no marketing behind this thing, even though it was center stage at Sony's biggest show of the year, or why, despite being the biggest financial failure in the history of media, it already feels like Concord's story is being forgotten after just a year. Alright, for real this time, like and sub if you think I earned it, and I'll catch you next time.